Hello, everyone. I, James Griffiths and Chris Griffiths, are here once again to discuss the critical standards we need to achieve prior to the end of our PGCE course, which is only roughly 10 weeks away now.
Yeah, it's
And
not that
we
long.
hope, no, it's not long at all, is it? It's gone flying by. So we hope last week's episode was beneficial to you, where we discussed P1 and P3, I believe it was. And we do hope today's episode will be of use for you, your PLP, and your teaching practices. So before we discuss our first critical standard, Chris, would you like to give a quick overview of today?
Yeah, so the two standards we're going to look at are C2, so seeking advice and support, and I2, developing new techniques. So these ones are going to be a little bit harder to evidence than the ones we discussed last week, but we're going to share some ideas to try and help with that. But as we said last week, this isn't all the right answers. These are just sharing some ideas and things that we've spoke about and kind of talked about with other people along the way. Just try and give you some ideas to really help.
So the first one we're going to talk about, as Chris said, is C2, seeking advice and support. And the descriptor for this is the teacher actively seeks and engages with support from a range of formal and informal sources. This includes observations and team teaching whilst demonstrating increasing levels of independence. So how can we meet capable? And me and Chris, again, we've been discussing how can we hit that capable standard. And it's not easy. It is quite tricky. And I think the easiest way to get there would be through observations, using that blue book. Your class mentor should be making notes of you teaching, if not weekly, fortnightly. Try and get a few in, because that for me would be a very easy piece of evidence you can place onto your PLP. But and also your progress reviews as well. We've got a progress review now coming this week. I believe that, right, Chris? Cap 3?
Coming up fairly soon, yeah.
Yeah, fairly soon. So again, that is another key piece of evidence for you. And as well as that, you should be having meetings with your class mentor as well. And every time you have these meetings, type them up. And if you can try and embed them into your lesson plans, I think that would be a very, very, very good way to meet capable.
Yeah, as you said, it's kind of hard to evidence this one because this
Yeah,
one relies mainly just around kind of having those conversations, seeking advice and getting help. So without doing stuff like reflections and stuff, it's quite hard. But yeah, the main bit is those blue book, the observations that your class mentors or senior mentors be writing on, evidence and highlight that. I think that's going to be the best bit because they're the ones who have those conversations. They're the ones that'll see you on the front line.
so we're now going to talk about our experiences of C2. And the first one there is working alongside teaching assistants to deliver lessons. Already in your lesson plans, you should be including your teaching assistants with a continuous provision or a focus task. Always including them into your lessons, I think, is a no-brainer for me personally. Do you agree with that, Chris?
Yeah, they're huge, and what the advantage they'll have is they already know the children. They'll already know kind of what makes them tick. So it's quite key if you're working with in a class that have teaching assistants. This is quite a nice standard because yeah, you're getting advice from them. They'll know which children will need what support, which ones will need differentiation more than others. So that's a key one. If you're in foundation phase, using your teaching assistants to teach with, but also to get advice and seek support. And you can even write, you can make notes of that in your blue book or get your mentor to do that as well. So there's evidence that way.
And with team teaching with a class mentor as well. Um, Sitting down with them, creating a lesson plan together, something I've done previously. So I know what is coming up, I know what to say, and I know how to teach it. And sometimes it's been a case of I'll lead the session and the class mentor would chip in every now and again. And then I would take one group away for focus task. And then she would take another group for the other focus task as well. Writing that as a reflection can easily make reach capable marks, I believe.
Yeah, I think with that, in terms of with the class mentors, I think a big thing of doing it is asking the questions.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and again, probably me, I'll have my hands up to this one as well, is with that mindset that asking questions is a sign of weakness. But we're not the finished article. We're still learning. And I think for what this standard sums up is go into the teacher to get advice, to get support. That's what they're there for. And then when they're making the notes and they're evidencing that, they'll be writing down that you come and asking questions. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you want to know and you want to thrive. Ask all questions. That mantra of there's no such thing as a silly question. I've heard about 3 or 4 times this year already. So yeah, just keep doing that.
Absolutely. And I feel as well like the teacher, the class mentors will see that you are passionate about teaching. You know, you want to know more, you want to develop your teaching practices. So having those conversations, like you said, it's not a sign of weakness. It's really not. We're all here to develop as teachers on this course. And by doing that, having those communication, the effective communication with the relevant people will only go into your favor.
Also, we've got seeking advice from intervention strategies. A lot of children, especially after the last year, will be behind kind of where they should be. So you'll probably come across a lot of children that are on plans to try and help with their interventions, whether it's speech, whether it's with literacy, anything like that. But speaking to the people leading those interventions, speak about them, ask questions, to kind of build up your knowledge that way, because you're seeking advice, you're seeking support. How can I implement this? So how can I help implement these strategies? I think X, Y, or Z needs some help with speech link. How can I do it? Just go and ask those questions. But also in all the schools, you've got the coordinators. You'll have the Welsh coordinator, you'll have the PE coordinator, you'll have the maths coordinator, music. Depending on the size of your school, there's coordinators for most things. So go and ask questions. If you need to try and get Welsh into your lessons, okay, speak to the coordinator. How can I do this? I know COVID makes this slightly harder, but there's nothing to stop you sitting in the hall 2 meters away.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think as well you touched upon there, it depends on the size of your school. Like me and you can definitely relate to this because I'm in a very fortunate position where I'm in a through school. So that's reception all the way up to year 11, I believe. And for you, you're it's mad, totally mad. And for you, you're in a very small school where it goes to reception to year 2, am I right?
Nursery. So I'm in an infant school where there's just 4 classes. Reception. You got me saying it now. Nursery to year 2. It's a tiny school. I think there's only 104, 105 kids on roll. So yeah,
and I've got 1,000 people, students, 1,000.
Opposite ends, isn't it? Massively.
Totally. And like in terms of coordinators, we've got a lot of coordinators. Roles I did not thought existed in a school in Wales. One being a Spanish coordinator.
But they're the ones with expertise in those roles.
Absolutely.
So you'd be silly not to go to them for advice and ask questions.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So now we're going to talk about further examples. We've already here on this slide jot them down. We've spoken about team teaching with class mentors and observation of class mentors and teaching assistants as well. Discussing teacher techniques, strategies, definitely talk about the strategies and don't be afraid to implement them as well. Like try them out. There's no harm in trying them because you're only going to learn by doing. And if it doesn't work, you can reflect on that and say, do you know what, it didn't work for this reason. Or it just didn't work at all. And that's not a strategy I will not be using again. But have those conversations with your class mentor and your teaching assistants.
But also if they don't go well, then you just think about what you can do to tweak it so it does go well.
Yes.
It's that kind of that fail, isn't it? First attempt in learning. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. You know what to do for next time. But this is the year to kind of experiment and have a go.
So just to finalize C2, we got here some reading lists as well. We've notified some articles from Team Teaching in Primary Schools and Team Teaching for Inclusive Learning, but also there's some useful websites out there as well. And this website here is a blog which discusses the most effective teachers turn to their colleagues for advice, while weaker teachers don't bother. I mean, I don't like the term weaker teachers. I think we can develop as teachers. You know, we've all got X amount of knowledge, and yes, discussing topics with a class mentor or a teacher that's been teaching for many years may have that additional knowledge to you. However, you're not weak teachers. You really aren't. So I think you can develop through conversations, effective conversations.
Yeah, you can. I'm under the kind of the mantra: you'll improve as much as you want to improve. If you really want to put the hard yards in and really improve yourself as a teacher, you'll go the distance and you'll go above and beyond, and you'll have those conversations. even if you don't want to, you still have those conversations for advice. It might be intimidating going and asking a question to somebody that's worked in a school for 20 years or 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. But at the end of the day, everybody in that school is somebody for advice. And on to the second standard for this segment, we're looking at I2, so developing new techniques. So the descriptor for this is research on cognitive, social, emotional, and physical development has a positive impact upon pedagogy. The teacher can demonstrate how professional discernment and critical analysis are brought to bear in shaping, developing practice. So how can we be capable for this? So it's kind of, again, this bit you can evidence a little bit, and this is where you can get more creative. But most of this, again, is going to come from observations, is going to come from feedback, is going to come from the Blue Book. But you can also be looking at doing reflections on the research you're looking into. So in terms of reaching capable, some experiences I've had within CP2, a lot of it is bent around research. So the first one is carousel approach. So going on to research and looking at you doing smaller groups, but rotating them. So you're breaking up the lesson, especially with foundation phase where we're with now. Having that, it keeps the engagement, so it helps with the learning. They're still learning an hour's lesson, but they're having to split up into little segments, so they don't quite realize that they are. But also behavior strategies. I know me and James did one of our first PGCE TV segments, actually.
It was.
We looked at stickers, and we looked at how the use of stickers can be used for positive reinforcement to help with that behavior and managing the learning environment. Ours were on the 4 purposes, just because obviously everything that's coming in. But these are examples. So not only are we going above and beyond to come up with our own, but we're looking at the research, we're reflecting on the research, we're seeing how the research kind of dictates what we can do. So there's examples for that. Immersion week, this is something that's fantastic. We've done it in my school, but also there's a lot of research out there where you just spend a whole week doing fun activities around a particular theme. So our theme was outdoor learning. So we literally, reception class, spent a full week going through different things. We went for walks, we went for trips, we did outdoor learning art. We learned about life cycles of various insects. We had people come in with animals. And what that does, that just shows the children how fun that topic can be and what kind of ideas they can have. And then that allowed us to then allow the children to kind of, or have that conversation with children, say, okay, so you've had all this, what do you want to learn about? And then we've planned now for the rest of the term based on the activities that the children wanted to do, which when theory and when reflected and in the Blue Book from our mentor gets a tick for innovative, because we're looking at new ideas, we're developing new approaches, but also that ties in with another one where learners leading their learning. So all these little things, these little innovative ideas don't only just fit I2, they can fit loads of different ones. And then the other one is the enhanced provision challenges. So it links in a little bit with the carousel approach. But those little activities that the children will do in their free time that link to themes, there's research there to suggest that they're learning by playing. It's all about play to learn, experiential learning. But that's an innovative approach. It's all about being creative. How are you going to deliver this learning? How can it be effective? What can you do? That's what innovative is about. Don't just be the one that does the bog standard teaching. How can I be different? How can I be creative? How can I make sure the children are learning without actually realizing they're doing work?
Yeah, I think you hit on the nail there with being creative. Teaching, especially with the new curriculum, it allows us to be creative in what we teach and how we teach it as well. And also another important key message you pointed there was whatever you produce as evidence, it can be linked to other standards as well.
Yeah.
It really can. So a quick example was the behavior strategies. In the last episode we spoke about the scratch cards, managing behavior. It talks about the 4 purposes, and now it's meeting I2, innovation. So already there's 3 standards we've ticked off there, and I'm sure it ticks off 1 or 2 more as well. When you talk about enhanced provision challenges as well, it's something I'm currently doing now. Is I'm via Seesaw, so I'm communicating with the parents. Is I'm setting them fun tasks. Yeah, tick. I'm sending fun challenges at home. It's all related to the 4 purposes. It's relating to the theme that we're doing, which is currently Under the Sea and Pirates, and it's a fun way as well for parents and their child to interact. An example would be use recyclable goods, recyclable materials to build a pirate ship in your house. It's fun, it's engaging, it's health and well-being, it's expressive arts. So already I'm meeting a lot of the curriculum standards and requirements for effective learning.
Through that.
For that alone, exactly.
But the best thing is this new curriculum, it allows us to be creative. It's not prescriptive. You can kind of do what you want. You can run with it. Most schools, there'd be very few schools that would be rigid and locked and wouldn't be open to these new exciting ideas. Like I'm lucky my school is kind of creative and allows that. But I'm sure if you come up with new ideas, teachers, old school teachers and teachers that aren't fairly new NQTs, they're not going to have a complete understanding of the new curriculum yet, or to the point that we will.
No.
Go with them with these exciting new ideas. They're creative. You want to try and take the bull by the horns, so to speak, and you want to really make an impression, because when we get teaching jobs and we get out there, you're going to want to be creative. You're going to have moments where you're going to say, I want to try this. As a school, what do we think? Speak to class mentors. Run with the idea through them first. And if they say, oh, no, I don't know if it'll work, then that's another conversation to have. But they might say, actually, I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And that can tick so many boxes off.
And as we previously said, you try, and if it isn't successful, you reflect on it, and it shows how much of a good teacher you can be by trying something new, reflecting on it, and then implementing a different strategy, a different way in the next lesson.
Reflective practice is so huge because you can document it. It makes it's evidence, but it also gives you a chance to take a step back and think, actually, is this right? Am I doing this right? What can I do? They're underrated for our PLP. We've got some examples, obviously, some ideas next. So you've got we've touched upon our four purpose stickers.
Yeah.
That's just an example. You've got immersion weeks we discussed. Using technology, DCF, that framework. How can you get technology into your lessons? Be creative. How can you do it? A lot of schools are moving away from paper for evidence and stuff. They're moving on to Seesaw, on to Dojo, and all portfolios online. Use technology wherever you can. You've got experiential learning. Okay, can they learn through play? Can they learn through experiences where they've got to problem solve? They've got to act through it. They've got to reflect themselves. They've got to think about it. Put the onus on them.
You know what? This links with the first descriptor as well. As we've been saying, you then talk to your mentor and discuss what went well, what didn't go well. So already you've hit 2 standards straight away.
And also the carousel kind of idea I touched upon earlier. I should have put in the examples, but that doesn't have to just be foundation phase. I've seen that used in year 5 and year 6 as well. I know other schools that use it. Don't be afraid to try something new. If it doesn't work, you reflect on it and say, oh no, it doesn't work, and you move forward as a teacher. We're not always going to get everything right. We're not experts. We're not perfect. And
we're not perfect.
No, and I think reflecting on those mistakes and those things that didn't quite work out is just as powerful as reflecting on the ones that do. We've also, on the next slide, as we've done normally, what we've done, we've got some reading lists. So there's a couple of articles there of stuff like using technology, experiential learning, so kind of learning through that play, learning through experimenting and trying that we've discussed about. Learning through play. We've also then a really powerful website where you look at growth and fixed mindsets. We had an SLT day on growth and fixed mindsets.
So we've already done the activity for that.
Yeah. So you've evidenced it. It's so many things. The SLT day tasks as well. We were discussing this earlier offline.
Yeah.
How all these SLT day tasks are so helpful, and we don't realize that they can all top up as evidence. We're just trying to give examples. We're trying to give ideas. And next week we move on to another 2 of the critical standards. We got L1, so take a responsibility for self, and L2, exercising corporate responsibility. Now these ones are going to be even harder again to evidence than the ones we've looked at today.
Absolutely. And I will just do the last bits in darkness just to make Chris feel a bit comfortable.
Yeah, I know. We started this when it was light, and I thought we were going to have loads of light, and now it's suddenly turned all dark.
At the minute, a bit of a floating head.
Yeah.
So yeah, as Chris mentioned, get in contact with us. Here's our Twitter details. So if you've got any good best practice you would like to share with us, please feel free to get in contact with us. And if you feel happy to, we will include your examples into our segments. Right. So thank you very much for tuning in this week. As Chris said, we are going to be focusing on 2 more standards, and have a great week, everyone. Hoi vau.
Hoi vau.